This episode of Profiles in Risk is brought to you by InsurTech Connect Las Vegas. The legendary ITC is coming back to Vegas October 14 to 16 at the Mandalay Bay Casino. ITC is the largest InsurTech conference in the world by a long shot and the absolute cannot miss event of the year. We never miss it, neither should you. Register today using our discount code INSNerd200. Again, that's INSNerd200 and see you in Vegas, baby. And when you're there, look for me. I'm the guy with the red top hat and ask me for a magic trick. Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, and today this is the first episode I record in my native Costa Rica, where I grew up, here visiting my mom for her 65th birthday. I'll record a few episodes while I'm here, and this is the first one. So if it's a little loud behind me, we'll deal with it, but dogs and cars, it's just the city is louder than American cities, especially the windows are not double paned because we have really good weather. So it's hard to avoid the noise.
Lucky you.
Exactly. Now I grew up here, so it doesn't bother me, but yeah. And Zoom has become really good at suppressing noises behind me, so hopefully we'll be fine. Today I have with me Dan Price. No, I got that wrong. Why do I have that second? Okay.
Dan Hill works too.
Yes. Today I have with me Dan Hill, National Sales Director, our CarFax. Dan, thank you for joining me today. And
thank you.
Thank you. And you even brought the fox, which is super cute.
My buddy, the CarFax is here with me today.
CarFax, I love that. Okay, so I love running into you guys at insurance conferences because the fox is very, very cute. So I love all the fox swag.
We love him too, Tony. He's our buddy.
Good. So Dan, according to LinkedIn, you are in Hastings, Michigan.
Correct.
So Michigan, July 21st, 2025. This is the time of the year where it's probably just gorgeous out there.
Michigan summers are bliss. It's one of the best places in the world to be. We live on a lake, so we get to have all the benefits of the summer recreation on the water. It's really nice. If you don't live on a lake in Michigan, you're doing something wrong. There's lots and lots of lakes.
I will tell you that as a recruiter, there's a couple of states that it's impossible to get people to relocate out of. And Michigan is one of those. The winters are tough. Yeah. But Michigan people love Michigan.
The summers make up for it, for sure.
And I totally get the summers, but yeah, it is really interesting to me. It's a beautiful area for sure.
It is
fantastic. So we always give the guest the chance to give the elevator pitch. So what is CarFax for insurers?
Yeah, well, thanks, Tony. You know, it's funny you mentioned conferences. We go to conferences and we get that question from insurers all the time. They aren't always familiar with, they know what we do. They know we provide vehicle history to help people buy and sell cars. But they see us at an insurance conference and they give us sort of a quizzical look. And I just say to them simply, tell me how much you know about the cars that you insure, the assets that you insure. And they'll say, well, we know the driver's credit history, the driver's driving record. We know where they work. But what do you really know about the car? And they have to admit they don't know little or anything about the assets they insure. So CarFax has all that information that we use to help people buy and sell cars. We take that same information and we help the insurance industry understand what it is they insure. So the verified annual mileage, for example, is critical information. The damage to the vehicle. When I came into the insurance industry a few decades ago, I won't have to get into the details of that, but we used to send inspectors out to look at the vehicle itself to see, one, was there actual evidence of a vehicle? And secondly, was it damaged? CarFax provides that. So in addition to the verified mileage and the damage, and then the ownership history and how that car has been owned and treated throughout its life, in addition to all those, we provide information about how that car was built. And that's important because the carrier doesn't know how fast that car is capable of going, how safe that car is, or generally how expensively it's constructed. And so we provide all of the detail of the make, characteristics of that vehicle. And then finally, we have the value of that car. That's important because insurers set the price based upon the actual cash value, and then they depreciate it over time. That that value of the vehicle varies greatly depending on the market. And if you don't have the current market value, you aren't setting your prices correct, so that when you go to pay out on a total loss, you may be paying an amount that you weren't anticipating in your pricing. So between the history of the car and the construction and the value, we really give a complete picture to the insurance carrier of what that asset really is that they're insuring.
Fantastic. So, as a former underwriter, this makes perfect sense to me. And I'm not just a former underwriter. I lived the California market for a bit,
Hmm.
and that one is
Very interesting market.
exactly that one is
Yeah.
tough. At that time, this was about 10 years ago. I haven't kept up with it because I no longer live there. But at that time, auto in California, you basically could only insure, for the most part, the only thing we could use was mileage. And it is surprisingly hard to get accurate mileage when the insured knows that this is the main thing that affects their rate, right? So they will do their best to to underestimate their mileage. And California is a very large state uh, where lots of people drive a lot. And yeah, they even have good weather. So it's not even like the winter's keeping them from driving. Like LA has no public transportation. San Francisco, a little bit, but in general, you drive places. Uh,
Yes. Yes.
so uh, having correct mileage from other sources makes a ton of sense. Now, in the rest of the country, where we are able to use other rating factors, the rest of this information is fantastic because you're right. I never thought about it. I grew up here in Costa Rica. My first car was here. I bought my first car. Well, I was a gift from my parents in 2002, and at that time, a guy physically came to examine the car before we were able to buy insurance on it.
Yeah.
That
That's,
has
I'm an
never
old underwriter.
happened.
That's how we used to do it.
That has
Exactly.
never happened in my time as a car owner in the US. Um,
Yeah.
and I never thought about it. But yes,
Yeah.
it does
Yeah.
make things tricky. So basically, in order to profitably underwrite in an environment where, for whatever reason, we expensive labor, very large country, very competitive insurance industry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, inconveniencing the customer, right? There's 10,000 reasons. It doesn't make sense to send a human out to physically inspect the car at the point of underwriting. Uh,
Yep.
so we need
There, you're Tony, you're so right. There's lots of reasons why physically seeing the car, even putting your eyes on it, doesn't give you the whole story. You're not seeing hidden damage. You're not seeing flood damage. You're not seeing previous fire damage. So you can physically see the car. You can see if there's prior damage to the exterior of the car, but you don't know what's underneath and what really has happened to that vehicle. For example, total thefts are typically totaled by an insurance company because they don't know what happened to the car while it was out of the insured's hands. Even though they can see it and physically assess it, they don't know what underlying damage to the engine, to the undercarriage, to the transmission has been done. And they'll typically total that, even though they can look at the car and say, hey, it's reasonably good shape. Interesting you talk about California. We worked with very closely with the Department of Insurance there and um, had them work with us to publish a set of best practices for the use of CarFax annual mileage.
excellent.
So we're sort of the unofficial um, approved source of mileage verification in California, and we have lots of customers that use our mileage for the exact reason. It's a mandated rating variable, and that's one you want to get right. And we've put side by side comparisons of customer provided data and with CarFax provided verified data. And the lift from customer provided data is almost negligible. And the CarFax data has a very smooth lift curve that provides very valuable information. There is one more thing that California statutes allow, which is interesting. Many people don't realize this, but vehicle characteristics are a stated approved rating variable in the California props. And so the build data about that car can be used in rating, and the history of that vehicle falls under vehicle characteristics.
Oh, fantastic.
So the damage to the vehicle and the treatment of that vehicle over time have been considered part of vehicle characteristics. So we're in good shape in California. We have lots of customers, and other states are beginning to really use our data in the similar way. They're seeing the success that California carriers are having, and now beginning to use our data countrywide. It's used in all 50 states today.
Fantastic, fantastic. Um, has CarFax been providing this for a long time, and I just hadn't noticed because I am not a buyer of this kind of data, or is CarFax a somewhat newer entrant into providing this kind of data to insurers compared to the usual suspects that have been selling us data forever?
Uh, we've been we've been providing vehicle history to the car buying and selling industry for over 30 years,
Oh,
and we've been active in the insurance marketplace for over 15,
okay.
close to 20 actually by this time. So it's fairly well known, it's fairly well established in some of the more active data companies, the companies that really use a lot of outside vendor data. We've been um, active for a long time with those carriers. And now other carriers are beginning to push out of their normal traditional class plan into using our characteristics and our vehicle history factors. We've just developed two new products that
Mhm.
I think will really help carriers use us more effectively. We've converted our data into scores, and we have a score that rates the safety of the vehicle using just the ADAS equipment and then combines that with vehicle history. So for example, it combines ADAS equipment with mileage, with the thinking that if a car is sitting in the garage most of the time, it doesn't matter how much safety equipment you've got, right? It's not going to help you much. But if you drive a fair amount, that safety equipment will make a big difference in your future loss costs. So that's one of the scores. We've taken all of our data and made it into a very easy to use, simple scoring methodology. The second is a bumper to bumper score that takes all of the characteristics on the vehicle and it evaluates how everything comes into play in loss costs. So how does the powertrain affect future loss costs? Is it a high-powered engine? Is it a manual transmission versus automatic? Is there a lot of safety equipment with the ADAS? And then how do the bumpers perform? How do the bench seats versus bucket seats perform in BI losses? Every different component on the car gets built into that score. And then we're able to tell you bumper to bumper what the loss costs on the road of this vehicle. It's akin to a symbol because in addition to the characteristics, we add in the value of the vehicle. And now we've got a symbol, but in a very easily digested manner of using a score that helps carriers digest that vehicle as a symbol, meaning how you rate the physical damage and liability performance and allows them to keep current on values as we provide current market values into that score. So it's a brand new tool that we think will be very popular in the marketplace that makes our products really easy to use.
Fantastic. Um, why? So these two products are a great example of this question, but in general, uh, why use CarFax instead of one of the other competitors that provides uh, underwriting useful history data?
Sure, sure. Yeah, there are a couple of competitors out there. Um, Mostly companies that sort of dabble around the edges of what we do. Um, we've been around for over 30 years building sources. So we have over 130,000 sources of data that allows us to really get a full picture around a vehicle of how that vehicle has been treated since it left the factory. In addition to all of those sources, we do a lot of data um, verification and editing to make sure that our data is really the latest cutting quality in terms of what we're presenting to make it as accurate as we possibly can so that carriers can trust and rely on our data. We have uh, almost 20 billion records on every vehicle made in the US. And so no one has that kind of capacity of data records and the number of sources that we have to give you that full picture of what that car looks like. So that really is the main competitive advantage we have. And then we're constantly, because we have so much data, we're constantly mining that data to look to build new products to help our customers, like this new symbols product or the ADAS safety score. And then we're building a new territory model that will help both of those scores understand what damage is occurring in the area where that car is driven. So that all that data really helps us bring the best products possible that we can provide to the market.
Fantastic. Um, Normally I ask about implementation, but in this case, implementation, I mean, we're using somebody's data. So I'm assuming
That's true.
transitioning to a different source of data or an extra source of data is pretty easy. I'm
Yeah.
more curious about uh, what the pricing philosophy is like, especially can we try it out with a 1 year contract, or are we tying ourselves to like a 3 or 5 year? Kind of what does that look like?
I think we differentiate ourselves in that area too, Tony. Um, Most data suppliers require subscription contracts where they require you to buy a large block of data for typically a year or more. And so, whether you use that data or not, you're forced to pay for a very large subscription. CarFax charges by the VIN. So, you only pay for the data that you use. And that charge applies for each of our products. So you can mix and match products and see what you're paying for each VIN for those products. So we really try to be very sensitive to our carriers to price right in their exact usage wheelhouse and not have them being paying for things they don't use.
Perfect, perfect. I'm always curious on the origin story. Now, I'm often interviewing fairly early stage startups, right?
Yep, yep.
So in this case, it's kind of a two-level question. So first, I mean, you have not been there since the beginning, but what is the origin story of CarFax? How did they decide to build this?
It really came out of the car industry. Um, People selling vehicles could tell you any story about where that car came from and how it was treated. It was grandma's car, it was kept in the garage, it hardly was ever driven,
They
church
went
in the
to church
store.
every Sunday, and yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you've heard that a few times.
Uh-huh.
So the car industry sort of needed a truth source to say this is the bottom line truth about this vehicle. And that was the origin of our company, was our founders saw that need in the marketplace and began to manually compile records from DMVs because it was in the 70s. There wasn't automation at the time. In fact, DMVs, for the most part, weren't automated till the late 70s. So just as they began to get automated, CarFax was getting involved in this business and automated with them and began collecting data from those DMVs directly and building this enormous database. From there, once that automation that foundation was put in place, now we had the ability to, and by the way, that was about the same time that VINs were standardized into 17-digit VINs with specific values associated with each position in the 17. Before then, every OEM had their own system, and it was sort of the Wild West, trying to keep track of the data about a car. With the standardization of the VIN and with automation, it really opened the door for CarFax to be able to go to repair shops, um, service shops, tire shops, anybody that touched the vehicle and began to collect the data. And we don't pay for most of that data. Most of the time, those service facilities want their business records to be on a CarFax report because it helps them show which cars they're servicing. And those vehicles, when they go back to the market, people that buy them can see where that car has been serviced and are more likely to go back to those sources.
Oh, makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So we're sort of helping the industry get repeat business at the same time helping with this truth of the source of what's going on with the vehicle so that title brands, for example, don't get transferred from state to state. We can help make sure that people understand that if this car was title branded in Missouri, when it goes to Kansas, the buyer of that vehicle won't be caught unaware. They'll see that it was title branded, it was totaled for fire or flood or a collision, and now they can understand what the exposure is and treat it accordingly. Up until CarFax came along, when a car changed states and was retitled, it was a brand new car as far as the buyer was concerned. There was no records that were transferred with that vehicle.
Wow.
So now we can standardize that and we can bring sort of transparency to the whole industry about what a car has been through in its life. And people can buy a car with confidence, knowing what it's been through. And then the insurers can insure with confidence, knowing what their assets are.
That is crazy. I can only imagine the crazy stuff that likely went on. Right. If Texas floods, we might as well grab 10,000 cars, transfer them to Arizona where there's no floods,
Yeah.
and retitle them and sell them over there, right? Like,
It's interesting you asked that, Tony. We did two studies. One, we did a study of what happened in Katrina to those vehicles, and we studied those vehicles 2 years after the flood, and we found them in almost all 50 states. And you can bet that if a CarFax report wasn't pulled, that car was sold without flood being disclosed on that vehicle. So they got dispersed around the country because no one's going to buy them in Louisiana,
yeah,
right? Because they all know they're flooded.
makes
So they
sense.
get sold in
Yeah,
Washington
we don't know
or
what to
in
look for.
Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The other interesting study we did was we took three flood cars around the country to different television stations and had them do on-air expose. They invited the public to come and look at these cars and try to identify the flood damage on the vehicles. First, they were asked, were they flood cars? And then if so, where was the flood damage? And very rarely would anybody be able to point to evidence of flood on a vehicle. Now, one of those cars finished the trip around the country because they all broke down along the way because they're mechanically a mess. It just doesn't show. You have to really get deep in the car to see how much damage there is. Well, you can imagine what kind of insurance risk that is, insuring a car that was totaled for flood, and now you're insuring it not knowing that, and
Mhm.
it's not going to last very long.
Yep, that makes perfect sense. I'm very curious also on your own story. So you had, according to your LinkedIn, an illustrious 35-year carrier leadership career at 3 or 4 different carriers. You could have gone and worked to at any supplier to the industry. And you've now been at CarFax for 12 years. So why did you choose CarFax, and what keeps you there?
Tony, great question. I did. I spent over 30 years in the insurance business and it was a great ride. It was a wild ride. There are times when, I had some really, really fun projects. Um, I'm an old underwriter. And so to your point, I was really fascinated with the value of this data. And I immediately recognized how important this could be to the industry that is insuring vehicles that they know nothing about. And I was in that position myself for many, many years and frustrated with the lack of ability of information. At two different carriers, I bought CarFax data, and I was such a believer in it that I helped two carriers implement it and saw the results in our book of business and the value that it provided. So CarFax came to me and said, "Look, you're buying it. You must see the value. Come help us." And it was an easy call. I really believed in the data, and CarFax has been just a great company to work for. They're really um, a very progressive, enlightened company that does a lot of great things. We have a great culture here at CarFax. And so what didn't take a minute to think about it, it was an easy decision, and I've not looked back since. I really enjoyed working for CarFax.
Fantastic, fantastic. Uh, Dan, thank you so much for your time today. This has been super, super, super interesting. Um, for the listeners, when this goes live, I will tag both Dan and the company here on LinkedIn.
Okay,
And the show notes also have the website, which is carfax4insurers.com. You can
correct.
find all the information there, and they do travel to conferences. Uh, so yeah, again, thank you so much for your time today.
Tony, it was fun. You do a great job. You make it very easy. So thank
Thank
you
you.
for being so easy to work with.